Well, the Delhi High Court today reserved its order in the case of Greenpeace activist Priya Pillai, who was offloaded from a London flight by the government last month, where she was to address British MPs on the rights of tribals. Today, Ms. Pillai told the court that she refuted the government's charge of being an anti-national by maintaining that she was against a company, and her offloading from the plane amounted to curtailing her freedom of speech and expression. Justifying the government's decision in these hearings, the additional Solicitor General Sanjay Jain has argued that the situation had potential for mischief against India's economic interests. Well, it's a case that has drawn a huge amount of criticism. It's one that's certainly seen a massive media spotlight as well. Siddharth Nath Singh, spokesperson of the BJP, with us tonight. Priya Pillai here in the studio with us. Siddharth, I'll ask you first. You know, there's been a lot of criticism of the government's and the MHA's position on this in court. Talking about Priya Pillai being an anti-national, saying it's like doodh mein makhi, that India's economic interests would be compromised, and there's a sense that one gets that the government is really shaken by this one young woman who is with an NGO which they consider a threat to the nation.
Well, I don't think, Nidhi, the government with large like India can be shaken by one person or any individual. I don't think it will be a right interpretation. This debate or criticism on the NGO's right being curtailed, freedom of speech, it's been going on in India and many other countries, and we have all debated it with pros and cons. So it's nothing new that is happening. But certainly, I think the new national debate which needs to be taken, a new discourse which needs to be debated, is whether a national interest or national respect for which probably can be compromised by a deposition of an individual it can be traded off, or it is something which can be curtailed. Whether it may lead for foreign companies or foreign countries to use it, or it may not, they may not use it, it's a matter of debate. But yes, if there is an apprehension by the government on certain things, as a citizen, I think we all have to take that into account. And at the same time, the government is not saying that we don't respect your right. They said, yes, you want to go out, please go out, but do not depose. Now, that's the only question which the government is saying.
Which is what Priya Pillai is actually arguing is a violation of her freedom of expression.
Whether this is like a gag order or is it something related to a national interest?
Okay, now when you hear national interest, that rings off many alarm bells in this country, I know. But, does this effectively, according to you, then amount to a gag order?
It definitely amounts to a gag order. If the government is asking me to give them an undertaking, saying that I will not say something, they are willing to let me leave this country on tourist visa, visiting countries, which is strange. I don't want to do that. I have, as a citizen of this country, I have a right to have an opinion which may or may not be against the government, to express it peacefully. This right is given to me by the Constitution. Now, the whole thing, if you look at it from 5 a.m. on the 11th of January till today, there have been multiple instances where the government has been constantly illegally targeting me. I can lay down all these instances where they issued a lookout circular. They've not served it to me till date. I don't know what it looks like. I've tried to engage with them. I wrote to them. They've not replied to me. They've not engaged back. They say I'm working against the national interest of the country. What is the national interest? Who defines national interest in this country? So you mean to say that rights of tribal communities fighting for their resources and their lives and livelihoods is not the national interest of this country? The national interest of the country is to protect the interests of a corporate registered in a foreign country, in UK. Is that national interest? I fail to understand what is national interest. And when I'm talking about violations, I'm not talking baselessly. We have evidence. There's a forgery. This group, SR, which is registered in the UK, was enlisted in the London Stock Exchange up until mid last year, has engaged in forgery in this country. They have the clearance they have got
you
is
have
based
a right
on a forged
to view.
document.
You have a right to have an opinion which the government, Siddharth Nath Singh, could disagree with. But the irony here is that while the government didn't want Priya Pillai to go to England and address these MPs, she did it anyway via Skype. So what is the message that the MHA is trying to send? That you can have an opinion or you can dissent against the government, but as long as you don't do it abroad by taking a flight to London.
Well, Nidhi, what you are promoting or you are suggesting, I would rather say, is that you don't need an immigration department at the customs. Many things sitting in our offices or on the basis of internet and computer, even a terrorist activity can be used by sitting in an office and using the internet. So they don't need to travel out or travel in. I don't think that's the right way of making a suggestion. There is a government of a day within their right can lay down certain guidelines for individuals, for all the citizens. But let me ask Ms. Pillai, I'm not making a judgment on her, but I'm just making a small observation, and she may like to answer to it. That look, you say you believe in the Indian judiciary, Indian institution, you have gone to various courts and various institutions in the country, and the violation is happening on the Indian soil, but you still want to go abroad to depose in front of the British parliamentarians at the same time. So you don't believe in the Indian judiciary, that's my observation. Secondly, you don't want to believe in the government when the government is saying this, your deposition can be used for something which will not be in the interest of the country. Now, both the things, you don't want to believe the government, you don't want to believe the Indian institutions and the Indian judiciaries to nail down some UK firm
can the
which
government
according to
censor
you
her views?
is doing some corrupt practices, but you wish to take the matter only to the British parliamentarians because you believe they are the right people, not the government of India or the Indian
let
judiciary
her
or the
answer.
Indian
Let Priya answer that.
To begin with, let me say that I have utmost faith in this country's judiciary, and I continue to hold it. I was not going to depose. Just a second, I didn't interrupt you. Let me come.
But your actions aren't.
Let her finish. Siddharth, let her finish. Okay, Priya,
no, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Sorry for that, but it becomes a suspect.
Let me just make things clear here. First, I was not going there to depose. You know, constantly you've been saying that I was going there to depose. This group is an informal parliamentarian group. Please go to the British website and check its status. You know, so I was just going for an interaction. Now, on the second thing, how can you compare me with criminals and terrorists? You know, what is the basis under which you are saying that I am anti-national and I'm criminal and I am a terrorist?
No,
you
no,
just can't. No, let me complete.
Analogy.
Sir, please, can I just complete?
I'm sorry, I didn't compare you. I just gave an analogy to.
You have to give me a chance to speak, sir.
Okay, he clarified he didn't make that comparison. He was giving an analogy.
The thing is also, what is this? What are your allegations based on? They are not based on law. It's just based on whims and fancies. Please bring out law. What was the basis in law to issue a lookout circular against me? Why can't you bring out the basis in law? I am talking about my right under the constitution of this country. You cannot ask me to give you an unconstitutional undertaking. You know, you cannot give, I will not give you an illegal, unconstitutional condition. You cannot impose an unconstitutional condition on me as against the benefits, constitutional benefits that I hold in this country.
Isn't it?
The undertaking is illegal.
Siddharth saying, isn't that a fundamental censorship and a violation of freedom of speech when you tell someone, if the government tells somebody that yes, you can go, but give us an undertaking that you're not going to say anything against us when you go. That sounds a bit strange.
Can I just add one more?
Does the constitution give any one of us, a constitution, does it give us a right that we can scream anything which could be harming the interest of the country? I don't think so. We as individuals also have a moral right to adhere to certain things which may not be as per the law, but it may harm, it may not harm, but we need to take our own judgment. If Ms. Pillai doesn't want to take that judgment, she is within her right, nobody is objecting to it. But then the government is within their right to appreciate whether her action going abroad can harm the interest of the country.
Siddharth, I just read out what the judge said in this case yesterday. I just read out what the judge said in this case yesterday. The judge said that the Indian state is not powerless. You have a plethora of trained diplomats doing a commendable job of protecting India's national interests. I don't see how the state cannot meet the challenge posed. I mean, you know, if an activist or activists, take a certain position on certain issues, what is the state afraid of? Can you stop people from, making those statements, from expressing their views? How do you then define national interest? Is the state so weak, is the question?
Well, Nidhi, it's a very difficult to do within a bracket a national interest, to bracket that. But certainly, again, I said it is for a judgment, and an individual can make that judgment what is the national interest and not. And Ms. Pillai doesn't think that way, then she is within her right to take that judgment. I said that. But at the same time, we cannot discount that there are certain NGOs, I'm not pointing to everybody, but there are certain NGOs which are doing some good works. There are certain NGOs which are being used as lobbyists. There are certain NGOs who are being funded for certain foreign policy issues, and we'll know about it, and there are a number of proofs. So government can take a call, and for that you don't say that you have to bracket a national interest. They can feel that this may happen or may not happen, and then take a call.
I think you're right, certainly about greater transparency that's needed among NGOs as well, and that's a separate debate. But this is about Priya's case. Last word, Priya, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think, this whole thing, I am exercising my moral right. I feel that we will attract sanctions if we do not talk about human right violations, if we do not take a stand against violations on our own people. And I want to understand why the government is equating the interests of a foreign corporate with the interests of the nation. It is not the same. The interests of the people of tribal communities in India is definitely different from the interests of a corporate that is registered in a foreign country. I don't know why you are protecting the interests of a foreign registered corporate.
I have to leave it at that, Priya and Siddharth. I have to leave it at that. There's been so much breaking news tonight. I wish we could have continued this conversation. But let's come back to this conversation when the High Court's judgment is finally out. It is reserved. Hopefully, it will be out in detail next week. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow.